There is an animal in Africa that lions avoid. That leopards think twice about. That snakes cannot kill, and that bees cannot drive away. It has no pack to protect it. No size to intimidate its enemies. No armor except its own skin and its own nerve. And right now, somewhere in the dry grasslands of East Africa, one of them is starving, not for herself, but for 3 hungry mouths waiting in the dark of an underground den. She is smaller than a jackal. Lighter than a leopard cub. And yet almost nothing on this savanna truly wants to fight her twice. This is the story of a mother honey badger. Pound for pound, one of the toughest animals on Earth. And today, like every day before it, her survival and her cubs depends on one brutal, unbending truth: out here, courage alone is never enough. You also have to be smart enough to know when not to use it. Dawn breaks over East Africa, and the light spreads slowly across a landscape that looks, at first glance, almost empty. Dry grass stretches to the horizon. Acacia trees cast thin, broken shadows. The earth is cracked and pale from months without real rain. But this land is not empty. It is simply patient, the way everything here has learned to be. Beneath a tangle of roots, in a burrow dug deep enough to escape the worst of the heat, 3 honey badger cubs are waking up. They are small, clumsy, still more fur than muscle, tumbling over one another in the dark. They do not yet know how dangerous their world is. That knowledge belongs to their mother. For a mother honey badger, every single day is a journey, a search for food, and a battle to keep her cubs alive one more sunset. She cannot rely on a mate to help provide. She cannot rely on a pack, the way lions or wild dogs can. She hunts alone, and she hunts constantly, because the moment she stops, her cubs stop with her. Despite her reputation for fearlessness and astonishing strength, the honey badger is not always a successful hunter. In truth, she fails more often than she succeeds. What sets her apart isn't a perfect record, it's what she does with the failures. Patience. An extraordinary sense of smell, capable of detecting prey buried deep underground or hidden inside solid wood. And above all, the instinct to seize whatever opportunity the wild puts in front of her, the instant it appears. Insects hidden beneath the soil. Reptiles basking in patches of sun. Small mammals hiding in burrows barely wider than her own body. Even the leftovers of a kill made by something far larger and far more dangerous than herself. To a honey badger, almost anything can become a meal if she is bold enough, and careful enough, to take it. But out here, every opportunity comes with a price. And today will test her on every single skill she has. The morning begins the way most mornings do, with her nose to the earth. She moves in a slow, deliberate zigzag across the open ground, pausing every few steps to sniff at burrow entrances, termite mounds, and cracks in the baked soil. This is not random wandering. It is a methodical search, built on instincts passed down across generations of badgers who survived by never overlooking a single opportunity. At a termite mound near a fallen log, she stops. Digs. Her claws alone, curved, powerful enough to tear through sun-hardened earth like it were loose sand, rip the mound apart in seconds. Termites scatter in a panic, and she eats quickly, efficiently, barely pausing between mouthfuls. It's a small meal. Not nearly enough to fill 3 growing bellies back at the den. But every calorie matters when tomorrow is never guaranteed. She moves on. Further along, a rustle in the grass catches her attention, the scent of a puff adder, one of the most venomous snakes on the continent. Most animals would turn and run. The honey badger does the opposite. She is famous, almost legendary, for her extraordinary resistance to venom. A snake bite that would kill most mammals many times her size can leave her stunned for only a few minutes before she wakes and simply finishes what she started. It is one of nature's strangest gifts, and one of the reasons almost nothing on this savanna chooses to challenge her twice. The strike comes fast. She takes the hit, staggers, and for a moment looks finished. Then, incredibly, she shakes it off, and the snake, which believed the fight was already over, discovers it was wrong. By mid-morning, a new scent reaches her on the wind, blood and decay, carried from somewhere across the grassland. The carcass of a young deer lies in the open, and within minutes of her arrival, it has already drawn a crowd. Vultures descend from every direction, dropping out of the sky in wide, spiraling turns, landing in a hissing, flapping mass around the body. A direct confrontation is almost impossible. A dozen vultures, sharp-beaked, aggressive, and defending a meal they consider already theirs, are not an enemy worth fighting head-on, even for an animal as fearless as she is. So instead of charging in, the honey badger does something few predators on this savanna are patient enough to do. She settles into the shade of a nearby bush, watching. The vultures squabble among themselves, shoving and stabbing at one another over the best pieces of meat. Their numbers, which make them intimidating as a group, also make them careless, each bird more focused on its rivals than on the ground around them. In the wild, knowing when to advance and when to hold back can matter more than raw strength ever could. Minutes pass. Then more minutes. The sun climbs higher, and still she waits, motionless, conserving every ounce of energy for the moment that matters. On the African savanna, a meal rarely belongs to whoever finds it first. It belongs to whoever is patient enough to seize the final opportunity. And when a gap finally opens, a moment where the bird's attention drifts entirely away from the carcass itself, she takes it. Fast, low, and without hesitation, she darts through the scattering birds, seizes a mouthful, and retreats before the vultures even fully register what has happened. It isn't a large portion, but it's enough to matter. And it costs her nothing but patience. The one resource she has in greater supply than any competitor on this field. Elsewhere on the savanna, another battle is already underway, one with far higher stakes than a scavenged carcass. A secretary bird, tall, striking, armored in feathers, and armed with powerful, stamping legs built for exactly this purpose, is locked in combat with a venomous snake. The fight is brutal and fast. The bird's legs strike downward again and again, aiming to stun or kill before the snake can land a fatal bite. The snake lashes back, coiling, striking, refusing to give ground. Dust rises with every blow. Feathers scatter. For several long moments, the outcome is impossible to predict. Neither combatant notices they are being watched. From the cover of the long grass nearby, the honey badger has been observing the entire fight in complete silence, low to the ground, utterly still. She did not win this battle, she was never even part of it, and she never intended to be. Fighting a healthy secretary bird directly would be a mistake even for her. But she has learned something during her years on this savanna that far fewer predators seem to grasp: you don't always need to win the fight. Sometimes you only need to be the one still watching when it ends. Finally, after a last desperate strike, the secretary bird lands a decisive blow. The snake goes still. The bird straightens, breathing hard, momentarily lost in the exhaustion and triumph of victory, its guard, for just a few seconds, completely down. The honey badger seizes her moment. She rushes in low and fast. And in a single heartbeat, the hard-won prize is gone, snatched clean from beneath the bird's feet before it even understands what has happened. The secretary bird shrieks in protest, wings flaring, but by then the honey badger is already retreating into the grass, prize in her jaws. This is not recklessness. It is strategy, built on years of watching, waiting, and understanding exactly how the world around her works. In nature, survival does not always belong to the strongest. More often, it belongs to whoever knows how to watch, how to wait, and how to seize the perfect moment when it finally, briefly, arrives. By afternoon, a new scent pulls her toward a stand of acacia trees, faint, sweet, and unmistakable, even from a considerable distance. Honey badgers are famous for one thing above all: their love of honey. With a sense of smell sharp enough to detect a hidden hive from remarkable range, they can locate bee nests tucked deep inside tree cavities that would be invisible to almost any other animal walking past. She finds the hive high in a hollow trunk, and almost nothing about her hesitates. She climbs, claws digging into bark, and begins tearing at the wood around the nest entrance. The reaction is immediate and furious. Bees pour out in a dark, roaring cloud, swarming around her head and body, stinging relentlessly, dozens of stings within the first few seconds alone. Most mammals would flee instantly, overwhelmed by the pain. The honey badger barely slows down. Her skin is remarkably thick, and loose enough around her body that many stings never reach deep enough to matter. She keeps tearing into the hive, pulling out chunks of honeycomb dripping with honey, along with larvae and pupae rich in fat and protein, exactly the kind of dense, high-energy food a nursing mother desperately needs. She eats where she stands, ignoring the chaos swirling around her completely, until the hive is stripped and the bees, exhausted from their own defense, finally begin to scatter. It's a valuable source of energy. Rich, sweet, and hard-earned in every sense of the word. But it is not enough. Not for a mother raising 3 hungry, fast-growing cubs. The search for food must continue, even as the sun begins its slow slide toward the horizon. As the afternoon heat begins to fade, she picks up a new scent, sharper, more alert, more dangerous to approach than anything she has hunted so far today. Meerkats are a rich source of protein, but they are far from easy prey. These small, sharp-eyed mammals live in tightly knit colonies, and at almost every moment, at least one sentry stands guard atop a termite mound or rock, scanning the horizon in every direction for exactly this kind of threat. The moment an alarm call rings out, the entire colony vanishes underground in seconds, a perfectly coordinated disappearing act, honed across countless generations of near misses just like the one about to unfold. To succeed, the honey badger has to move with extreme caution, creeping low through the grass, freezing at the slightest twitch of a sentry's head, waiting for the one perfect opening that might never come. She gets close. Closer than most predators on this savanna ever manage, close enough to see individual meerkats grooming, playing, digging, completely unaware of how near danger has crept. But then, a sentry catches a flicker of movement. The alarm call rings out sharp and clear across the grassland, and in an instant, the entire colony vanishes into the earth, dozens of animals disappearing into dozens of tunnel entrances almost simultaneously, leaving nothing behind but settling dust and silence. For most predators, this would be a defeat, plain and simple, hours of careful stalking gone in the space of a single heartbeat. For a mother with 3 growing cubs waiting at home, it's simply a delay. She doesn't linger on the failure. She doesn't need to. Giving up has never been an option, and it isn't one now. She turns and moves on toward the next opportunity, wherever it might be waiting. The sun is low over the grassland by the time she finally turns toward home, her shadow stretching long and thin across the cooling earth. At the entrance to the den, 3 small shapes emerge to greet her, tumbling over each other in their eagerness, still too young to understand just how much effort today required, or how easily it all could have gone wrong. To them, she is simply home arriving. To her, this moment, cubs safe, cubs fed, is the only measure of success that has ever mattered. Honey from a hidden hive deep inside a hollow tree. Meat scavenged from a stranger's carcass, taken through patience rather than force. A stolen prize snatched from the jaws of another predator's hard-won victory. Termites torn from sun-baked earth. Each meal today came from a completely different opportunity, seized in a completely different way, using a completely different skill. That remarkable adaptability. The willingness to fight when fighting makes sense, to wait when waiting serves her better, to steal, endure, dig, climb, and improvise, all in a single day, is what makes the honey badger one of Africa's most resilient animals. Not the strongest predator on the savanna. Not the fastest, or the largest, or the most feared by everything around her. Simply the most relentlessly adaptable. Every risk she took today served one single purpose. For a mother honey badger, every meal she brings home is more than just food. It is one more day of survival for the cubs depending entirely on her. And on this unforgiving savanna, one more day, just one, is a victory all its own. Night falls slowly over the grassland. The cubs settle in against their mother, safe for now, fed for now, unaware of how much effort that for now actually cost. But on the East African plains, no victory lasts forever, and no meal buys more than a single day of peace. Tomorrow, the sun will rise again over the same dry grass, the same cracked earth, the same unforgiving horizon. And the search for food will begin again, because for a honey badger, that is not the exception to life. That is the whole of it.